Do you remember the exact sound that someone made when someone was online on MSN? Because millions of people do. And that sound doesn't exist anymore. MSN wasn't just a chat app, it was a place where friendships would start, would end. No screenshots, no receipts, no timelines. And then one day it disappeared. No warning, no real goodbye. And why does losing it felt strange? Now, why did MSN exist in the first place? By the late 90s, everyone had Microsoft, so Windows was already on top. But what they didn't fully control is what were the people doing after they went online. And back then, the internet was kind of all over the place. There wasn't like a main hub. Some people basically lived on AOL, some people used Yahoo, or some people just, used email. These weren't just random apps, they were like different entrances to the internet, and whichever one you used shaped everything else. So Microsoft started realizing something simple. If people spend hours being on one app, that means that technically Microsoft doesn't own that friendship, but some other app does. That's why MSN existed. Not because Microsoft had some sort of genius idea or that they have some sort of innovative idea. It's just that they didn't want other people to use Yahoo, AOL, or something else. Messaging wasn't about social media back then, it was just where people hung out. And Microsoft realized if they didn't create that place, that means they were just a gateway, a portal for you to access someone else's website for that reason. And if Microsoft didn't build their own space for that, they risked becoming the thing you turn on before going to somewhere else. So once Microsoft decided they needed MSN, the next problem wasn't building some amazing app. It was way simpler than that. How do you get millions of people to actually use it? MSN didn't spread because people went looking for it. It spread because it was already sitting on their computer. You bought a PC, you turn it on, bam, there it is. No sign up hype, no downloading some random program. MSN came bundled with Windows, and Windows was basically unavoidable. So when you wanted to chat with someone, it wasn't really like, oh, what's the best chatting app? It was like, oh, what do I already have? And that was MSN. And once few friends started using MSN, that was it. Because messaging apps didn't need to be amazing, they just needed your friends to be there. That's how MSN really grew, not through innovation, but through distribution and momentum. And that was the important thing, because getting users was easy, but keeping them was actually hard. What made MSN hard to replace at the time? Honestly, it wasn't one killer feature, it was a bunch of small features that actually worked together. First, your contact list. Once your friends were on MSN, leaving it didn't make sense, and switching to another app was a hassle. Second, presence. You can instantly see who was online, who was away, who just signed in. And I know that sounds simple and irrelevant, but back then that was revolutionary. It made MSN feel alive. Third, status messages. People use them to signal moods, availability. It was also like sending a message, but without sending a message. And finally, everything lived in one place. You just turn on your computer and bam, it was there. Like no plugins, no extra settings. It was easy. The problem is when you win this way, you don't feel much pressure to change, and that's where things started going wrong. So, when did MSN start falling behind? Short answer, the internet moved from desktop to pockets, and MSN didn't follow fast enough. For years, MSN was built as an idea of you sit down, you turn on your computer, you log on, you chat, that's it. That worked until it didn't. Once smartphones started taking off, people didn't want to wait until they got home to talk. They wanted to message instantly from everywhere. Other companies saw this shift early. They built messaging for phones first, simple, fast, always on. MSN on the other hand was still tied to a desk. And this wasn't just a technical issue, this was a mindset issue. So while MSN was still strong on PCs, it was clearly losing relevance where the future was clearly heading. And once messaging became mobile first, the MSN wasn't in the center of the conversation. MSN was still huge, millions of people were using it, and on the surface everything looked fine. But Microsoft knew the world was changing, messaging was moving, phones were taking over, and they needed a solution that could survive the future. That's when Skype entered the picture and it completely changed the game. Now, why did Microsoft choose Skype over MSN? Well, the short answer, on paper, Skype was the better option. When Microsoft bought Skype in 2011, Skype wasn't just a chat app, it was already global, cross-platform and built around voice and video, things MSN was weak at. Skype worked on Windows, Mac, mobile, and even Linux. MSN didn't. From a business point of view, Skype looked like the future. It felt more serious, more professional, more scalable. So in Microsoft, the logic was simple. You had two apps, two chatting apps, just focus on one that has better video, voice. The problem was Microsoft compared them as products, not experiences. Skype was great at video calls and MSN was good for casual communication. They served different roles, but on spreadsheet they looked redundant. So Microsoft picked the one that looked more modern, more global, and the one that's easy to sell to businesses. And in doing that, they basically decided MSN's fate. Once that decision was made, the rest happens pretty quickly. Now, why did MSN have to die? Well, Microsoft already bet everything on Skype, so it didn't make sense to have two platforms that did exactly the same thing. MSN and Skype were overlapping in some ways, sure, but the bigger issue was resources and focus. Keeping MSN alive would have meant maintaining old servers, updating a platform that already was outdated, and competing with Skype for attention, and Microsoft didn't really see the point. From their perspective, it was quite simple. Why split your energy between two apps when one is clearly the future? So they shut MSN down. No graceful migration, no long transition, just a hard stop. Millions of users, years of chat history, hundreds of features gone. It wasn't because people stopped liking it, it was because Microsoft made a rational business call, and that's the story of MSN. A giant of its time, killed by strategy, not irrelevance. It didn't vanish because it wasn't loved. It vanished because business logic sometimes wins over nostalgia.